Well, welcome all again. Everyone online, Ludwig as well. So I'm very happy to introduce our friend Daniela. She's working in ECTU from the very beginning, so she knows all the chords. So she's the Professor of Ethics of Research and Responsible Research in Pavia. And I would just like to comment a very big success of Daniela on the ERC grant on communication. Congratulations again, and we'll be very happy to hear what you have to say on the digital environment for the ECTU.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Today what I wanted to share with you was a little bit what we mean by a digital environment for researchers, because we will have to develop one in the coming years, and I want it to be as much as possible a collaborative work that takes into consideration what it's the existing landscape outside of RI4C2 and outside of ECTU, of course, the budget we will have, but also where the world is going in this direction, because we cannot build something that is old already when we start. So what do we mean by a digital environment for researcher? There are a lot of definitions, but this is the most common one. It's a comprehensive integrated online platform or a suite of tools designed to facilitate and enhance various aspects of academic and scientific research. It's a virtual space that provides researchers with resources, tools, and capabilities they need to conduct, collaborate on, and disseminate their work more effectively. So actually, I think the three key points in the definition are that we have to help them to conduct, to collaborate on, and to disseminate. So these are the three areas of a virtual space for researchers. What are the key elements we find here and there in some of the research spaces that have been designed by institutions, the European Commission, and we will see some, and even commercial tools, and we will see some examples. First of all, we have collaboration tools that facilitate the communication between the researchers, the teamwork, the exchange of data and information, regardless of their physical location. This can include, of course, the classical forums, chat application, video conferencing tool, and everything we know is part of a digital environment. This is particularly important for us as ECTU will develop the virtual institutes, and we would like to develop the virtual institute in a direction of a more collaborative workspace for our researchers in the 8 universities. Then some of the research workspace have data management and storage areas that provide secure and efficient areas where you can put your data and you're sure that everything will follow the rules, the legal constraints, and facilitate the exchange of data between two universities or even a network. There are tools for research networking, so platform for researchers to find collaborations. I want to develop a research, I want to apply to a grant, where can I find a suitable partner for this? You know, there are many matchmaking tools, and we already saw some of them, but how can we customize those matchmaking tools or build our own if we have the opportunity and if we have the skills and the budget to do it, to really fit the needs of our community? There is another important area, which is the access to resources, so centralized access to research papers, journals, open science environment, open publication environment, that of course integrate the access to the other platforms we have outside. I'm sorry for the slides, but it wasn't in Courier. It was another character, but it has been transformed by the presentation, so you miss the last part. And then there are the project management and productivity tools. that are quite complicated tools. Most of them are commercial tools that I don't know how many of you have already used a classical project management tool, like, I don't know, Jira is one of the most common one. There are other ones where you build, you split your project in parts, and you attribute the duties to specific groups of researchers, and you follow up how this part of your activity is conducted. This is quite important in some environments also to establish who has the intellectual property, the ownership, especially when a research is really, it's a translational or even applicative research that will bring to patents. These kind of tools can be quite important to determine which one of the researcher contributed in which way. And then there are grant and funding support resources. So I want to select the grant application that really suits for my project. There are publication and dissemination tools. That means we can have tools that integrate social media for researchers to help them to disseminate their resources. We can have there is a large variety of tools, tools that show you the most important conference in your field, tools that help you to build a successful Instagram slideshow with your research. And these kind of tools are, of course, growing very, very fast due to, and we will see it, due to the introduction of the AI. There are now a lot of tools that allows you to take a scientific paper, and this is part of my personal job sometimes outside of the university. I summarize papers for doctors. To give you an example, I put the paper in some AI tools and I get a slideshow for doctors with the main outcomes. This kind of tools are really powerful for dissemination, of course. And then there are areas in some research environments for the compliance to ethics management. So informed consent forms, procedures, submission to ethics committee, and also tools for whistleblowing and management of fraud and misconduct. Those are also part of the research environment. There are, all those environments should be accessible, of course, and inclusive as much as possible, because we don't want to keep researchers outside of our environment because they are not accessible to researchers with specific needs. And we have to comply with security and privacy laws, especially in Europe, and be GDPR approved. Some suggestions outside of our world. Okay, some of them are not classical research environment tools, but it's just that I want to show you what I'm looking at to be inspired for us. This is a quite old website that all of you probably know, which is RRI Tools, but it's the result of a research project granted by the European Commission. But the reason why I want to show you this website is this is a repository of tools, so a toolkit for the development of responsible research and innovation. So in the area of public engagement, and not only. What they did along the years is they classify the information according to who you are. So you can enter into the website through a profile. Are you a policymaker? Are you a researcher? Or you can navigate the website through a topic search. So are you interested in research, in ethics, in governance, in open access, and so and so. And they give you also an entry by duty. I have to develop this kind of skill. How can I reach the contents that will help me? And this is what you find, what you retrieve, cards that shows you a tool, a project, a paper. So the content can be very diverse, but it's aggregated according to specific rules. So it's actually a database that is more user-friendly than a classical database, because you retrieve the contents according to the use you will, the way you can use what you're retrieving. So this is something that could inspire our small toolkit, as we said yesterday. So an entry space in our web page that helps our researcher to find the things that we already developed, but are so different in shape and use cases that that it's hard to classify them in a classical database. And this is, of course, you know it, it's the European Open Science Cloud. Sorry, I can't read there, but it's a hub that has been developed to foster open science. Again, this is not exactly a research environment, but what I want to show you is how it is classified. So you can explore the things, you can upload and discover research output, you can publish research outputs, and you can find funding opportunities. You have tools, you share tools like computing and storage resources, tools to organize, to process and analyze your data, or to have access to training materials. So you see that even if this is a cloud, a platform that is built around the idea of fostering open science, they are providing useful tools for researchers. And this is just an example. I filter by tools, and I found an information system for analyzing data. We have also new actors we have to deal with outside, commercial actors. I selected some of them just randomly. The ones that I know that are more, let's say, advertised among researchers. GenAI. GenAI, as you can read, is an assistant AI to create research and scientific papers. So this is the kind of tool that we will probably will have to deal in the coming years. This is another very important platform, RI4C2. It's a workspace for research that allows you to explore research database, filter the contents, analyze the contents immediately. You ask a question, and RI4C2 is able to read and summarize contents that are related, so papers, gray literature, whatever you can find that summarizes what you are asking, so helps you in developing your research, to extract content and also to summarize your own research or other researchers. And you can chat with the artificial intelligence as a researcher, so say, I have this research problem. Is there any paper that already covered my research problem that you can retrieve for me? So this is how they develop this kind of AI. And their research workspace include, as I said, a content-based search, a filtering, a data filtering that allows you to retrieve data and also to extract data from the paper. So for meta-analysis, just to give an example, you can do it directly from the final source, and it helps you to systematize data. It helps you to analyze, to summarize, and chat with the data set, et cetera, et cetera. This is the most interesting tool for me, which is the document set analysis, because it has some similarities with what we want to do with our documental database, with all the governance and gray literature documents on how we manage our universities. And I told you that one of the ideas is to compare policies using this documental database that we are developing, and that should classify all the documents we produce about the researcher's career. So if we want one day to be able to understand how we follow the career of our young researchers, which kind of strategies we have, we could leverage these kind of tools and also our documental database to retrieve commonalities, differences, and on the long run work toward harmonization. This is another tool, just to show you that there are tons of them outside of there. I mean, in the last year, I've seen maybe 20 new products reaching the market. The reason why I show commercial tools is just to tell you a very important thing. These kind of tools are really expensive and really hard to develop. It's not something that an alliance will ever develop on its own. That's not our goal. But some of our universities already subscribe some of those tools. So this is the first thing that we can do. It's a mapping of the available tools in our offered by our universities to their researchers, and gather them in a single entry point so our researchers can, first of all, know them better, because a lot of researchers do not know that these tools exist or can be useful, and help them to leverage what we already have, because we can't develop this on our own. There is also the issue of finding grant opportunities, and someone else will speak after me much better on this. Of course, we all know the funding and tender opportunities portal. It's the classical EU-funded tool that we know, but there are outside of there also commercial tools that select the grants for you according to keywords that you provide. Some of our universities, I selected Spinbase as one of the many you find outside of there, but I selected this one because a couple of our universities are among the list of subscribers they have. So one of the things that could be useful would be to offer our researcher a window on selected grants that could fit with the purposes of the virtual institutes. I don't know if it will be with this tool or another one. This is what we are developing. I already showed these slides yesterday. We committed to develop a research workspace, and we committed to develop mostly a tool for communication and to leverage the existing databases we have on the Knowledge Hub, so mostly our list of research facilities and institutions, and our list of courses, in order to help our researchers to find other researchers in the partner universities that could be partners in project submissions. But the more we work on this, the more we realize that we have to stick to the model of the virtual institutes. So we have to have as an entry point the topics of the virtual institutes, because if we open this to any kind of research we have in our universities, we won't be able to manage it. And also, as I said, we committed to develop a text analysis for documental classification and search engine. That is what I showed you. So these are the three pillars of the next AC2U, and most of them are a legacy of RI4C2. Certainly the research workspace, certainly the text analysis that will leverage the database we developed in RI4C2. Sorry for the slide, but to create a collaborative digital research environment for AC2U, there are some issues we have to think about. First of all, we did some interviews with the researchers that were involved in the virtual institute in the first phase. And what we understood from them is that communication is their main issue. So the virtual institute actually worked quite well in the universities where the PI or the director of the virtual institute was based, but they were really unable right now to develop any networking that goes, and also to develop an internal research plan, which is not necessarily the general one, that we have a more, let's say, a smaller version of it focused on the topic of the virtual institute. So this is the first challenge we have to find a way to answer. They need tools to communicate, they need to know each other. So of course, and another problem that everybody told us is there is no visibility for the researchers that are part of a virtual institute. There is no list of who is part of a virtual institute. There is no, how can I also be proud of being part of a research lab that is not based somewhere? It's a virtual one, but still it should be a research group. So they ask us to have more visibility, more networking opportunities. The other problem is that there is limited support for the AC2U researcher by the local research offices. And we know that our local research offices are overwhelmed by what they have to do. And they cannot focus especially on the AC2U project. They have a lot of things to think. So this research environment doesn't want to do the work of the research office, because we have a research office. It wants to be let's say, something that helps the researchers to at least do some of the road on their own without being supported necessarily by the research office. Then, of course, when they really want to apply, when they really have to write a budget and so, they will, of course, use the research office. We know that the Connect Center and the Knowledge Hub can offer digital solution in enhancing the collaboration. And we already said that the toolkit developed by RI4C2 could be the first seed of the future platform that will have a single entry point on the website. And this is also very important. The user interface is one of the problems we had from the digital side. We developed a lot of databases. They are not very user-friendly. And also, the contents of those databases are not updated, as I keep on saying. So one of the problems is the research facilities, are they updated enough? Do we have a list that is up to date? If it's not a useful database. So we have to commit together to keep them alive and updated. So what we are proposing right now, and this is just an idea that we developed, is to create user profiles for the researchers and give visibility for the virtual institutes, to integrate with, this tool with the project website, to create collaboration spaces, to create a tool for communication and document sharing, to create something for grant application support. We will see how. It could be leveraging what is already available at EU level or at our own university level. Okay, thank you. Showing the opportunities for mobility, because we have the list of mobility of the virtual institute, but no central repository. So if they want to move from one side to another, gathering all the training opportunities online and in person for researchers. We committed to develop a job opportunities databases in the next phase, so to work with our stakeholders to display stages, job opportunities. We could also include the job opportunities in research and offer this tool to our researchers. And of course, sharing resources, data, and expertise across the virtual institutes. The main challenges and opportunities. So the main challenge, I have to say, is the budget and the skills. Developing these tools is really, really complicated and expensive. And sometimes the skills that we need in terms of really coding, preparing these kind of tools is not necessarily available in our universities, because a lot of those things are commercial ones or are developed with standards that are not the one used by the university. So this is the first issue. we have to do what we can with the budget we have and the IT time we have. To fully develop all potential use cases, we have to apply to additional funds and collaborate with the ongoing EU-launched project for digital development of universities. There are ongoing projects, and we have to follow them and be sure that we are updated to what they will develop and eventually apply if we have a specific part that we want to develop. We have to learn from EU-supported projects because they are doing a lot of things there. Overview of successful digital research environment, and also key takeaway from their best practice. We have to use experience and accessibility and ensure that the interface is intuitive and accessible. As I said, we really need to solve the issue of security and data management, because a lot of those tools requires an exchange of personal data. And we keep on saying that we need some kind of legal frameworks to exchange personal data. I know that the coordination team is working on this. It's really important for us. Any digital environment will require us to exchange things, names, data. And we have to implement the roadmap and the next steps. So we want to to leverage what is already existing as I said, in the consortium, and also have a look at what your universities offer for the researchers to map the existing tools. In order to do this, we have a lot of time, because actually the research workspace is a task that will be developed from month 24 to month 28. So we have now 1.5 years to map the existing tools and follow up what will happen in the future. And at month 24, when we will be ready to develop things, we will be really ready. That's what we want to do. So we will have probably a lot of bilateral meetings, and we want to explore what you're doing in your own universities. And we need a call to action and for the collaboration in our universities. As I said, we want to give the keys of these areas to the virtual institute directors. We want them to be autonomous in updating their profiles, their content, in chatting one with the other, and so on. So this will require a call to action. We have to bring on board our research offices in a way or another, because of course they will be interested also in what we are doing, and maybe it can be a model for something else. So there are many challenges, and that's the reason why, if you read our task, it's a little bit blurry. I mean, blurry. It's vague in its final outcomes, which tools we will actually develop. We only committed to something to communicate and actually the databases, but we described an environment. So that's exactly what we want to do together, decide together what kind of shape we want to give to this environment. And so my idea is the integration model. We cannot develop new things, we have to integrate what we have already. So integrate the tools we developed, integrate the workspace we already have in a single entry point, collect resources together to overcome the budget limitation, collect the training opportunities, and give active support to create a community. The problem with these tools is that a digital tool or a digital environment is a nice tool, but it's like a social media. If you want a successful social media, you need people to interact. And that's exactly the problem. You need community managers. So we will see how we can develop this kind of community managers' skills. And that's what I can tell you right now about this project, which is ongoing, as you see. And this is the first opportunity we have to discuss. It's with the RI4C2 members and not with the ACTU members that will actually be involved in this. But I think that because we already discussed a lot of those things together, especially in this project, the legacy you can, and also the suggestion you can give to the Pavia team and to the consortium are really, really important. Thank you.
turn of Tilman Turpin. Can you very briefly, Ricardo, introduce our colleague from Poitiers? And just to mention that we will be giving our colleague Tilman 15 minutes more, and we are starting our coffee break at 11:45. If you are okay, just to let Tilman to give you time enough. Okay.
Tilman is going to go for a show here because he asked for a mic and he'll probably dance on the floor, so it causes another technical problem in terms of cameras and following him. At least that was the so a joke to introduce Tilman, which is working for the University of Poitiers. He's responsible for UP Square, financing and a transformation module for the University of Poitiers. He says that he's not part of the ECTU family and our RI4C2 family. He's wrong, and we'll prove him wrong. So I would like very much to welcome him and be away, get out of the main floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for, first of all, Ludovic T, inviting me after a discussion, during a discussion after a meeting in Brussels on SWOF's meeting of different alliances, where also we talked with Ricardo. So first of all, thank you for inviting me, and thank you very much to the Salamanca team, and specifically Jorge for the organization. So actually, why am I standing? Because I tried to calculate the time I've been sitting since leaving Poitiers, which is about roughly 80% of my awake hours. So I thought it might be more interesting to stand up. And if I remember rightly, in Jena, we were actually invited to do sports between the sessions and the panelists. So I won't invite you to do sports, but at least I'll try to move, and I actually can concentrate better when I'm standing up. So yes, I'm not officially part of the ECTU or RI4C2 family, but this is the third meeting I'm attending, so I might, drop into it over time. And what I'll do today is to present you UP Squared, which is a specific program, and I'll follow Kurt Tucholsky's advice. Then, when starting a speech, you all start right at the beginning to, at the end, in the last 30 seconds, actually talk about what you want to talk about. So I won't start with the Greeks, but I'll start with very briefly talking about the University of Poitiers at a glance, the strategy of the University of Poitiers, because what I'm supposed to do and trying to do on an everyday basis is to implement via UP Squared the strategy of the University of Poitiers through different programs or through the program you'll see. And in order to understand that, I'll quickly talk about France 2030, which is the financing side of things and the billions and billions of euros that the French government injects into university transforming programs. Before then, I'll talk about the main objective, not in the last 30 seconds, I hope, but at least shortly about UP Squared objectives and instruments, and then some issues I personally have encountered as the program directive of this of UP Squared, in link with ECTU notably, and the integration of ECTU partners in proposals by our researchers. So very quickly, University of Poitiers at a glance, to let you know that the difficulty sometimes can be that it's a multi-site university with four research centers, and the other centers are training centers. It's a research university, pluridisciplinary. I'll talk about that, with 1,300 academics in all disciplines, including health. And it's one of the first two universities that was labeled, and that's interesting and important for the following, labeled Sustainable Development and Social Responsibility, which is a French national label organized by an organization. And ever since this sustainable development and social responsibility idea is at the heart of university strategy, which basically is, as most of the universities in the Alliance, based on the Coimbra Declaration, a humanistic, citizen-centered and sustainable model, as considering university as a key actor of the knowledge square. Based on the three SDGs, number 3, 4, and 11, that are at the heart of the strategy, that is declined in the last 3 points, which is a balanced dynamics between research and training and education, in the sense that it is not a research-centered university, and the idea is to combine the two as much as possible, which is in the French system not always that easy. An interdisciplinary scientific positioning, which, as I'll say in a little bit, is difficult as well, because the idea of interdisciplinary as such in the academic system is not rewarded specifically today, and obviously reaffirming responsibility as central for everyday action and functioning of the university and its services as such. Just on this slide, recently research was restructured in 5 federative research institutes that gather amongst, well, within each of these institutes, so health, mathematics, physics, engineering, and digital, energy and environment, humanities and societies, law and political science, the different labs, disciplinary labs that are that exist in the one of the 47 research structures that are regrouped in these federative research institutes to, well, by the creation of that, and sorry, they integrate what the French call écoles doctorales, which are graduate schools in the French system as well. So it's a combination of research and, well, PhD training, and not yet graduate school in the sense of what Anglo-Saxons would understand as being graduate school model, integrating from the master level to the PhD level, working with research on the link between training and research. So the idea of these federative research institutes, which were voted actually last year and implemented last year, is to restructure research in order to enforce the development of interdisciplinary research simply by putting together all these labs in one specific institute, to enforce and encourage collective applications for competitive calls. University of Poitiers to now is slightly under average in responding and obtaining competitive calls. And obviously as well, economics play a role, strengthen collective use of research equipment to make sure that the investments that are made within the university are used on a most productive and cost-efficient way. Obviously, this is within a local context I will not talk about, and obviously the university is very strongly engaged in ECTU. So, a few words about the context that actually finances this transforming program for the University of Poitiers, the UP² program. In 2021, the French government, after COVID, decided to launch a massive investment program, 54 billion euros, in addition to already existing financing for French universities for a 5-year period, to allow them to develop a certain number of well, processes, etc., but not only universities, but also private investors and private companies. Ambition simply, and as usual, a very understatement French ambition to engage France in ecological transition through massive investment to help emerge French key leaders in technological development and innovation. So 3 axes: produce better, live better, understand better. And they are declined as well for the private sector. So if you're a company, you can apply for these funds, and also for universities who can apply for these funds. And within this France 2030 program, there is one program which is called the Investments for Future program, le Programme d'Investissement d'Avenir, which is a PIA program, which is currently in the 4th wave. The first wave started off in 2021 when it was called France Relance. And the 4th wave includes one specific program where UP² for the University of Poitiers comes in, because we're laureate of this PIA4 program. It's a $20 billion euro program with 7.5 billion euros specifically dedicated for structural innovation and transformation within universities. Okay? The idea is to basically help universities arrive in the 21st century on the structural side of things, being able to be competitive actors in global education, research and training. And so the University of Poitiers, we already have PA3 programs running, which are dedicated to education, question of education and orientation and digitalization of education. This is why Yves Gervais yesterday said that it might be interesting for the University of Poitiers to engage in the new Digital Education Virtual Institute, because that's something we're currently very strongly working on. We're, for example, recruiting a junior professor specifically dedicated to these questions, and there is a supplementary priority research program which will be launched in the coming weeks, actually, and it will be run by the University of Poitiers with the biggest French national research organization for the amount of 35 million euros for a few years to work on science for education. So that will be officially announced, hopefully, in the coming weeks. UP Squared. UP Squared, what is it? It's simply Poitiers' reply to the PIA4 call called Excellence or Excellences in all its forms, which was a specific call for universities to make them suggest programs that aim at the transformation of the university as such, either on the scientific side, research side, or on the user side. One out of the, I think, 14 laureates of the first wave decided to work only on student life, for example. They considered that this was a good way of, integrating student life and all issues concerning student life in the sense of student success as a multiple idea, a multiple layer idea, to orient their project along that. For the University of Poitiers, it's a 10-year program, duration 10 years, 2022 to 2032, with an overall budget of 93 million euros, 16 million euros, funded by the program as such. It's built around two simple ideas. The first one is to structure an international, interdisciplinary scientific approach, and I reckon you're guessing where we're going to with the word interdisciplinary, slowly but surely, in order to address the major societal challenges. Okay, this is why I talked about the importance of interdisciplinarity in a pluridisciplinary university, because implementing that is actually the most tricky thing to do. And the second level is strengthen the knowledge square around the 3 SDGs at the core, and specifically the link between education and research and the dissemination of knowledge. So how does it work? I'll just quickly start with the second one. 3 key objectives for this action. Create a graduate school. And perhaps just to come back to the idea of what a graduate school is. In French, we don't use the term of graduate schools. We use école doctorale, and they only do doctoral training. Okay? Slowly, over the last 5 to 3 years, has been integrated the idea of graduate schools in the Anglo-Saxon sense, which is including master research tracks leading to PhD tracks, or general PhD tracks. Some universities have already developed it, but there's as many different models as there is universities having implemented the idea of a graduate school, because there's no official definition of what a graduate school is in France, because the idea itself is pretty new in the research area. So the idea here is to implement on the basis of research produced, financed by UP Squared, and on the strong points of the university, it's a series of programs, graduate programs, which will integrate innovative research and introduction to research, or based on innovative research and introduction to research from the master level on. Along line the 3 SDGs, obviously, which are the key elements of the strategy. Develop an accelerator in order to boost the university's contribution to knowledge-based economy, and to accompany, and that goes a little bit in the direction of what Daniela says on another level, researchers in the diffusion of what they're doing. And obviously, the very strong dimension is to make sure that the link between university and the city as such is present in the reflection on all programs, research programs, through the science and society approach. And I'll say a word about that in a minute, because I'll be talking about the first level, or the first action. The idea is simple. We're living in a world where universities are engaged in alliances, but also as individual universities are looking to be visible on an international level, okay? So the idea is to strengthen the scientific trademark of the University of Poitiers. Its attractivity, because you all know that scientists like to move to the universities that make them the most interesting offers, academically speaking, but also the most interesting environment. And this specifically within High Europe, and to bring these new high potential, to develop new high potential projects, again, along the 3 SDGs. And the third objective is to develop interdisciplinary research. I don't know who of you has tried to do genuine interdisciplinary research based on H2020 definition of interdisciplinary. A lot of people stay on the level of pluridisciplinary. We're going to take historians, biologists, and lawyers and have them work on a subject. Everybody coming with their own specific ideas and methodologies. The idea is not to do that. The idea is to put all these together, shake it, and try to find a new specific approach that answers in an interdisciplinary manner an interdisciplinary research question. And convincing researchers to do that, and that's one of the things I'll be concluding on, is not that evident. So in order to do that, there's 3 instruments, basically. There's internal calls for proposals on 3 levels. Well, 3.5 levels, because initially there was 3 levels. The first level being impulse, simply, one step back. All internal proposals are based on 3 simple preconditions. The approach has to be interdisciplinary. The research question has to be interdisciplinary. It has to imply at least 2 labs of Poitiers or partner universities, including EC2U. It has to integrate science and society. The idea from the scratch to disseminate, vulgarize scientific results. And obviously this has been added in the second round, notably for Impulse, the question of gender and the research question as such. When possible. So Impulse is the first level of internal call for a proposal, where basically we offer per year to 8 to 14 projects a funding of 3 to 15,000 euros in order to impulse interdisciplinary research and work with partners within the university and with other partner universities for a duration of 12 to 18 months, and that can simply include preparing workshops, etc., etc. What they do a budget proposition, and they can only apply once because it's an impulsion. So the idea is to make them work together on a subject that then go technically, if they want to do, to the second level, which would be emerge. This is where impulsed research projects will hopefully emerge to become more structuring research projects within the university, okay? And to do so, obviously, researchers need PhD students to accompany and strengthen their research. So this includes general funding of 10 to 30,000 euros plus 8 PhD, half PhD grants for the different projects. And the idea was initially to have a third level, which is not Paris, but which would have been scale up in the sense of, at the end, having 4 to 6 very major structuring research projects for the university. But the steering committee will most likely decide not to go in that direction because that's putting too much hope in too few research projects. So the idea is altogether have roughly 100 impulse projects over the 10 years, 40 emerge project, and we added a specific one, which is in French, it's Programme d'appui au réseau de recherche international. So it's basically a program helping international research networks. Research networks of international research, sorry, that way around, and to develop international interdisciplinary research and strengthen the existing research networks and develop new ones. So just a few numbers. The project started in 2022, and the first call for the first level was launched the same year. 57 projects presented, 25 selected for a total budget of 250,000. Initially planned 150,000, so we had to top up. Second year, when I arrived, because I arrived in May 23, 30 projects presented, 15 selected, and we were on budget because we had planned 150,000. And it's an internal evaluation by members of the Research Commission of the University of Poitiers. Second level, we launched that in September 2023, and the selection process ended in January 2024. 21 projects presented, 17 selected, 8 of them having a PhD financing grant, knowing that they have to make sure that the other 50% are provided by other funding. So total budget of 850,000 for that. Internal and external evaluation, I don't know who, for internal calls, who of your institutions systematically uses external evaluation for internal calls. It's not easy to set up, but very interesting because they have their very interesting look on what you're doing, and their feedbacks were very positive on what we did. And then we launched roughly at the same time the last level of support programs. 25 projects presented and 23 selected for a total of 1 million euros, which was actually additional funding by the French government. And we decided, because the aim of this is to have at least 10 projects going toward a high-level grant on the European level, ERC or cost program. So that's why the information of this morning on cost program is so interesting. And one of the projects I'll actually talk about is going towards a cost program. Ricardo knows it very well. And we had the external evaluation that was only done by those who had obtained an ERC grant or who had been on a panel. Which takes quite a long time actually to evaluate. And the decision was made, so they basically benefit of a funding from 15,000 euros to 100,000 euros, according to what they want to do. If you want to do if you want to set up a cost program, you need additional staff. We were talking about a few minutes ago. Daniela was talking about the necessity of additional staff, so they can recruit someone as project manager who helps them to develop. And at the same time, we're talking about research offices. Emerge and Paris, they are benefiting from, the PIs are benefiting from a very specific help by the research office that has been staffed at the same time through a second program I'm in charge of, financed by the French government, with the idea to recruit, to be able to accompany on a very professional basis the future PIs or the PIs from scratch to the moment where they will already defend their project. So this is just a few numbers, and this is where we end up at. This is the slide I wanted to change. Since 2022, we fund 80 projects. 90% of them are still going on. Okay? That's a lot. It's 40 projects for the Impulsion, 17 Emerge, and 23 Paris. And these will be going till end of 2025, and these till 2027, because they have PhDs starting in October 2024. Okay, so 11 out of these projects are working with ECTU partner universities. If you're optimistic, you can say the glass is 10% full. If you're pessimistic, you say the glass is 90% empty. What's interesting is that 4 out of 40 impulsion programs, so the smallest level, the lowest level of programs in the sense of academic scientific ambitions, already has 4 programs that are running that include university partners of the ECTU network. Do you have any clue which are the 3 top universities? Coimbra, Salamanca, and Turku. One for Iași and one for Pavia. And 6, obviously, for Paris, because the idea was that the specific call answers, well, goes in the direction of strengthening international research networks. So all this is to say that via UP Squared, the University of Poitiers has decided to link the very own strategic ambitions of the university with the EC2 network. And the question now is, how can that be transformed into 50% of programs or projects working with ECTU universities? And this is where Daniela's intervention is actually my conclusion, in the sense of saying there is a series of issues in developing common research proposals. The first one is, I mean, the title was Common Research Proposals. And we had a discussion yesterday with Raoul and Daniela on common or shared. Are we talking about genuine common research proposals, which implies a series of political decisions? Or are we simply talking about the fact, I'm not talking about virtual institutes, which is one of the ways of developing, I think, common research proposals and projects. Or are we rather talking about shared research projects, simply saying that we are in an alliance as universities and we want our researchers to work together, and each of the partner universities will, well, develop means to make researchers work together. University of Poitiers has the chance of being able to run these costly programs. How can that work? So just a few reflections from my side as not being EC2U or RI4C2, but running a program, one of which ambitions is to make sure that our researchers more strongly work with your researchers from your universities and with the different, and sort of line up in the different programs. And I'll finish on that. It's basically, it's a wish list, okay? In saying these are the difficulties we have, internal ones. First thing I said is implementing the difficulty to implement interdisciplinary approach. There's a lot of reluctance regarding interdisciplinarity, okay? Because in the French system, for example, it's difficult to be qualified in a specific disciplinary section if you've done an interdisciplinary PhD. This is my case. I come from political theory. We don't exist. Okay, we're just nobody would hire us. How do you sort of make coincide what is going on with the federative research institutes? How do you create incentives beyond existing programs, UP Squared, EC2U, etc.? And I quickly said that earlier on. How do you make sure that you actually know what kind of research is going on within your university? So do we do scientometrics? This is something we're starting up at the University of Poitiers in the sense of really knowing, based on publications and another metrics, to know what our researchers are actually doing, where they're publishing, are they active, are they not active, etc., to be able to do research management. I'm not talking about the political level of the sense of orientating research or trying to orientate research as you can do via financing, for example. Knowing about EC2 and research partners. I'm sure that if all academics, researchers, had the possibility to easily access through the research office, through a website, etc., the information they need, and they would be more likely to develop the reflex of saying, okay, I'm applying to a call which says we very strongly recommend, then, you know, I'll have a look at what is available beyond personal networks, because we all know that personal networks are very important for researchers. And one of the biggest times, but I reckon that's time for everything, is to help them spare time for new projects, which is time taking on teaching, for example, when they have obligations. This is internal, and I think basically we all share the same difficulties. And the external thing is more sort of, it's a very step back look at things. It's, again, sharing information on what's going on in different universities. Presenting what I did, UP Squared, to partner universities, saying this is how we try to make academics, researchers work together with you and your universities. So communicate and have them let them have the information. This will lead to generating the desire to work together. I mean, if I know that there is networks I can walk with, that will help adding new names to the list of usual suspects. I was quite astonished to see that there's a series of names regularly popping up who are very engaged in ECTU and different programs. And yes, that's what I call the usual suspects. They're the ones who, because they have the information, they're engaged, etc. So how do you grab the others? The other 98% of researchers that are not, for the time being, working in this context. Facilitating information, etc., etc. So the contact center and Open Iris as Turco. So I need this platform. How can I use that? And that goes together with simply facilitating mobilities and the manner of welcoming. The different welcome protocols you have to sign, etc. When you go to different research zones, protected or not protected, etc., etc. Perhaps sharing the same intellectual, interdisciplinary approach and the political desire to go further. This goes back to the question of shared or common. To which extent is there actually the desire, despite differences in national systems, obviously, to go to a more integrated version or vision of research, and then obviously they're all playing the same game through the tools we all know, Common Research R&I, virtual institutes, which I think are a great thing in the future, co-tutel, and collectively applying for funding. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.